Hey folks, Mark back to do a vinyl update. I know it's been a long time. The year has gotten away from me. Where did 2018 go? Just seems like months have been flying into months and I have not gotten around to doing a video. So let's do this. I wanted to get one in before the year was over and it almost is. So I hope everybody's doing well. I hope the holidays are treating you well and very stress-free, and hope everybody's able to kind of, relax a little bit and close out 2018 properly. I, for one, am going to Dallas tomorrow from Cleveland, my home Cleveland. I'm going to Dallas, where I grew up, and going to see family and friends there over the coming week, and I'll be back here on December 26th and kind of ride out the rest of the year in mellow fashion, listen to some records, hopefully. So anyway, picked up a lot of stuff this year. I'm not even going to try and show it all to you because it would just be too long. So I want to just show you some highlights of things I've picked up. And even this stack is really big. So I'm going to roll through them pretty quickly. I want to wrap this up within 20 minutes. So let's see how I do. Bob Ray is one of the first things I've picked up, or that I'm going to show you. Bob Ray is a singer-songwriter from the late 60s. This came out in 1970 on the Soul City label. You may recognize that label if you buy Fifth Dimension Records or Johnny Rivers. Johnny Rivers apparently founded this label. I didn't know that until recently. Bob Ray is the only album he did that I know of, and think an American version of Donovan. Very kind of mystical, dreamy, pretty music. I downloaded this off a blog back like 10 years ago, and it was kind of a scratchy copy, but I have loved it for the last 10 years, played it to death, and finally broke down and got a copy. And it plays very well, and it's really, really good. If you want to get a sense of what it's like, check out The Girl with the Cameo Ring or Personal Movie from Bob Ray. Check this out on YouTube. This band out of Chicago called Ariel, I got really into over the last couple of months. They played a festival in Kalamazoo called Calumet Shoegazer that I went to, and just blew me away. 3-piece, but they sound like a 5-piece. Think Ride, Slow Dive, Lush, that kind of thing, and you're in their ballpark. Just good, dreamy shoegaze pop. They have an album called Molten Young Lovers that I'm on the hunt for. Have a digital copy, but the vinyl's proving to be pretty expensive. So I got this EP, Kid Games, at their show. It's also really good. Got this Bauhaus release. This is a new release from them. It is the Bela Lugosi's Dead session, the Bella Sessions. Apparently, this is everything they recorded in that first session that produced Bela Lugosi's Dead. And the B-sides are, well, you get a remastered version of Bela Lugosi's Dead, plus the B-side Boys in a different version, and then a track called Some Faces, which I'd never heard before, kind of a poppy sound for Bauhaus. Bite My Hip, which turned into Lagertijanik, later single by them. And then Harry is also on here, which was a B-side to on the Searching for Satori EP, Kick in the Eye 12-inch. So good find. I was glad to pick this up. Bela Lugosi's Dead. Here's a band called Twerps. Don't know much about them, but very good jangly guitar pop from the Merge label. Came out in 2015. If you're a fan of New Zealand bands like Flying Nun label, like The Clean or the Verlaines or the Chills, if you're into that, check these guys out. Good ear candy there. Twerps. Dave D, Dozy, Bakey, Mick, and Titch. This is a British pop band from the late 60s, and one of the songs on here, this is the greatest hits, and one of the singles on here, Hideaway, I had as a little kid, with Here's a Heart on the B-side, and just good guitar pop, British guitar pop from the late 60s, kind of modish, sort of a garagey sound. Big fan of them. This is on the Fontana label from 67, I believe. Danielle Dax, been a big fan of hers for a long time, but never really bought anything by her. Just a couple of 12-inches here and there, but used to hear her music in the clubs in the late 80s. Cat House, Big Hollow Man, White Knuckle Ride. These were all, kind of pretty big gothy club hits in the late 80s. And she did an album, this one called Dark Adapted Eye, came out on the Sire label in 1988, and compiles a lot of her singles and that had been released at that time. Good guitar, gothy pop. Like her a lot. There's a punk band called Boys. Picked this one up in Kalamazoo when I was there. They're called The Boys. This is, I believe, their second album. UK punk band, late 70s, early 80s. This album came out in 1980. This is a reissue from the Get Back label that came out in 2000. Their records are pretty hard to find, so reissues are pretty much your best bet for getting stuff by them. Just good guitar pop punk from the late 70s. Hard to describe. If you're a fan of The Clash, yeah, pick up The Boys, or at least investigate them. Of course, I broke down and got both the My Bloody Valentine albums. I got Loveless, which I'm not going to show, but I also got this, Isn't Anything. I never had either one on vinyl, just had them both on CD. And of course, these are two classic albums. If you're into shoegaze, you already know these. Loveless and Isn't Anything. This is from 1988, and they were reissued on My Bloody Valentine's own label, MBV, and remastered by Kevin Shields. They sound fantastic, and they better for the amount of money I paid for them. In Search of Space, this is a Hawkwind album. I've been after some Hawkwind for a long time. Don't really have anything by them except for the Silver Machine single. So had been wanting this for a long time. I'm looking for the year on it. I'm not sure exactly when it came out. Early 70s, I believe. But good space rock, trippy space rock, kind of, I don't know, a mix of electronics and spacey guitars, kind of psychedelic, and with touches of krautrock as well. So, big fan of this album. And it does fold out into kind of an interesting little sleeve here. So there you go. Hawkwind, In Search of Space. This one I've had forever. I had the tape of this back in the mid-'80s. Bill Nelson, it's called The Love That Whirls. Huge fan of Bill Nelson. I love him and have most of his stuff. He used to be in a band called Bebop Deluxe in the 70s. And then in the 80s, he went solo and did a lot of new wavy guitar, power pop, and then mutated more into synth pop and even more ambient music as the decade went. And this album is a great example of his more synthesized music from 1982, The Love That Whirls. I had this on cassette in the 80s, and then I bought a CD of it, like around 2000 or something, bought a CD issue. Never had a vinyl of it, so there you go. Bill Nelson, The Love That Whirls. Lena Lovitch, this is another one I had on tape in the 80s. Stateless, never had the vinyl. I have her other albums. I have Flex and No Man's Land, but I never got around to buying Stateless, so finally broke down and got this. She's fantastic, Lena Lovitch. I don't know, she's a very eccentric new wave pop. Look up Lucky Number on YouTube if you want to get a sense of what she's all about. Cabaret Voltaire, huge fan of them. This is one of the few albums by them I never had. Live at the YMCA, and it's exactly it. It's an official live bootleg released on Rough Trade in, I believe, 1979, I want to say. But it contains a lot of their earlier stuff, like Do the Mussolini, and I'm trying to see what else is on here. Nag, Nag, Nag is on here. So it's definitely pre-dance Cabaret Voltaire, live at the YMCA. Found this real cheap, Goat, their, I believe, second album. It's called Commune. Goat are fantastic, psychedelic, sort of tribal world music. It's very hard to describe their music. Look them up, Goat, fantastic stuff. Bulgarian Voices, Les Mysteries des Vox Bulgaris. I'm sure I butchered that. The Bulgarian Voices. This kind of started off that whole Gregorian chant thing that was all the rage in the late 80s, early 90s. And this album came out on 4AD in 1986. And it's just good, kind of serene Gregorian chant music. Or actually, Bulgarian. I don't know if there's a difference, but there you go. This band, Deaf Heaven, huge fan of them. This is their first album, Sunbather. I think it's their first album. Caught them live a couple months back, and they were fantastic. They vacillate from death metal, speed death metal, and then they go shoegaze. Then they go back to speed and death metal, then they go to shoegaze. They kind of go back and forth, and I really love the juxtaposition. And live, they're just amazing. And Sunbather is a terrific album. This is a double. They've released 2 since then, which are fantastic. Here's another one I've been after for a long time. Gene Left Jezebel's debut album, Promise. This came out in 1983, I believe, on Situation 2, and it's truly remarkable. I think it's just a great eccentric guitar post-punk album. Definitely not very dancey. It's more dark, moody, and eccentric. Singles from it are Bruises and Screaming for Emmeline. Fantastic stuff. Definitely not like the later stuff. It's not very poppy at all. I'd liken it more to Wolfgang Press or Bauhaus. Gene Love Jezebel, Promise. Here's a one-man act out of Brooklyn. It goes by the name of Blank Dogs, and he's released a ton of records, loads of singles and EPs. This is just one of them. Most of his stuff is very post-punky, guitar-based drums kind of a sound. Not too, a little bit Joy Division-esque or Gang of Four. This one, though, is a lot more synth-heavy, more New Order-ish. I love everything I hear by Blank Dogs, and if you're into post-punk or post-punk synth and guitar stuff, like New Order, Factory, check out Blank Dogs. Figures on a Beach, just good synth pop, Boston-based act, and this is a 12-inch called No Stars. If you're into like mid-80s, new waves, dance, synth pop of the Depeche Mode variety, check out No Stars by Figures on a Beach. Great stuff. Seacat Trance, British act from the mid-80s. This is an album that they did called Camus. And I have a couple of their EPs, but this is the first time I'd come across this album in ages. Think early Shriekback, twisted funk with a post-punk feel to it. Seacat Trance. Soft Kill, this is one of their first records. Good post-punk act that are still going today. This came out in 2010, I believe. I could be wrong. But just, again, good post-punk, guitar-based synth sort of sound. Think Factory Records, and you're getting in the right ballpark. House of Love, an album I never had by them, Audience with the Mind. This is one they snuck out in 1993, I believe, after their Babe Rainbow album. Not long after their Babe Rainbow album. And it came out, no singles were released from it. It was just, they just put it out quietly, and it didn't do all that well. It kind of died the death. But I really like it, and I never got around to picking up the CD because I used to see it around in the budget bins. Just never got around to it, and then it vanished. Quit seeing it. So I came across the vinyl of it not long ago, and on a trip to Ann Arbor, as a matter of fact, and had to snatch it. Nothing, fantastic shoegaze act, and this is a reissue of, I believe, their debut EP. Fantastic shoegaze if you're into Ride. That kind of sound, pick up Nothing. Really, really good. Baby Grand, picked this up at the last show by the Church. The Church is one of my favorite groups, and this is an act that Steve Kilbey, there's Steve Kilbey of the Church. This is an act he was in before the Church. A lot more glam, think Sweet or Slade, but with kind of a snotty attitude. Baby Grand, Australian act from the mid-70s, featuring Steve Kilbey before the Church. Church guitarist Peter Copes was also a member of this band for a while. All right, moving on. Kikigaku Moyo. This is a Japanese band, fantastic psychedelic Japanese band, and this is their most recent album, and it's called Masana Temples. This came out just a couple of months ago, and they're touring around for it. If you're into dreamy, mystical, psychedelic music with a lot of sitar, check out Kikigaku Moyo. I really, really like this band. Laura Nero, seen this album around for a long, long time. I knew that she was a songwriter for songs like Stony End, made famous by Barbra Streisand, Stone Soul Picnic, made famous by Fifth Dimension. She's just done a load of songs. Eli's Comin', big hit for Three Dog Night. Anyway, picked up her album. I was expecting it to be very singer-songwriter-ish, and it turned out to be very Dixieland vaudeville. It had a very lively, upbeat sound. Put me in a great mood. So I'll be looking for more of her records. Laura Nero. This album is called Eli and the 13th Confession. All right, moving right along. I'm skipping some things just because I'm already seeing we're at 14 minutes. Great R&B act from England from the mid-80s. This is Loose Ends, A Little Spice. Check out the song Hanging on a String. Fantastic, laid-back, electronic R&B music. And I picked up a couple Sparks albums I never had. This one called Big Beat, and this one called Indiscreet, which has one of my favorite Sparks songs, Get in the Swing. Never owned these two. Glad to have them in the collection. Silver Screen is a one-man act, very good jangly guitar pop, and this is an album he did a few years back when you and I were young, his second. Silver Screen, if you're into dreamy, jangly guitar pop like Trash Can Sinatra's or Aztec Camera or anything like that, check out Silver Screen. Photo Crime. This is an act out of Louisville, Kentucky. It's a guy named Ryan Patterson who used to be in Coliseum, who were a lot heavier, very Killing Joke-ish. Well, he's now broke off from them and got his own act called Photo Crime, who definitely have that mid-80s gothy post-punk sound a la Sisters of Mercy, March Violets, or Red Lorry, Yellow Lorry. He uses a drum machine with sharp angular guitars. Check out Photo Crime if you're into that stuff. Micro Disney, this is an album they did. Everybody's fantastic. Been looking for this for a while. Another one I downloaded off a blog ages ago and have loved. Good guitar pop from the mid-80s. Band out of Cork, Ireland. They did another album after this, a couple more actually. One called The Clock Comes Down the Stairs, which is fantastic. And then another one called, what was the other one? I think Crooked Mile. And then they broke up, split up, and the singer, Cathal Coughlin, formed Fatima Mansions, who got big in the UK in the mid-90s. And the instrumentalist, Sean O'Hagan, formed High Llamas and was also a part-time member of Stereolab. But Micro Disney are fantastic. Everybody is Fantastic is a really, really good poppy album by them. Good ear candy. Ride, been talking about them throughout this video. This is an EP they did called Tomorrow's Shore. Fantastic stuff. The Damned. Great return to form with their Evil Spirits album. Was very glad to get hold of that one. Adorable, one of my favorite bands from the early 1980s or early 1990s. This is an album, Against Perfection, that they released in 1993 and had it on CD forever. Still have it on CD. Think Echo and the Bunnymen, Ride, a little like them, like a post-punk shoegaze kind of thing. Very overlooked in the early 1990s. They were kind of a band out of time. If they had emerged in the time of the early 2000s along with like Editors and Interpol, I think they would have done a lot better. But in 1993, they were a little out of place because post-punk wasn't really the in thing and shoegaze was kind of dying. But this is a solid, solid album. Huge fan of this. Can't talk it up enough. Francois Hardy found this reissue of her debut album. Fantastic French pop from the early 1960s. Very romantic. Wallflower. There's a Japanese shoegaze band. This is an album called Ever After, their most recent one. Just really good wall of sound, dreamy shoegaze from Japan. Wallflower. Some good krautrocky psychedelia from a band called Mountain Movers. This is a new act on the Trouble and Mind label. Just good psychedelic, kind of krauty stuff. I saw them open for, I forget who I saw them open for, but I saw them live and they just blew me away and had to pick up their album. Another band, Howlin' Rain. These guys are great. It's called Live Rain. Saw these guys live at the recommendation of a friend of mine. Good southern fried psychedelia. Boogie woogie, kind of like if Black Crowes were more psychedelic. Torch, fantastic heavier rock band. Not really metal, more just kind of heavy rock. They put on an incendiary live show. If you ever get a chance to see them, check out Torch, and this is an album. I believe their most recent one, but it's now a few years old. It's called Restarter. See what else we got here. I'm trying to get through here. We only got a couple minutes. The most recent Asteroid No. 4 album, another one of my favorite bands. This is called Collide. Came out on the 13 O'Clock label earlier this year. Great psychedelic band if you're a fan of The Church or Black Angels or just any guitar-based psychedelic pop. Check out Asteroid No. 4. They're fantastic. Nothing's most recent album. It's called Dance on the Blacktop. Great shoegaze, kind of a heavier shoegaze act. If you get a chance to see them live, highly recommend it. Showed one of their records earlier. OMD, their first album since reforming back in 2010. Yeah, 2010. This is the first album of Paul Humphreys and Annie McCluskey. First album they did together in, gosh, years upon years. The last album they'd done together previous was The Pacific Age in 1986. So they took a long hiatus from each other, came back strong with this. Had it on CD, but did not have the vinyl, so I picked up a double vinyl reissue of this that came out this year. Fantastic record. History of Modern, OMD. They've since done 2 other records, one called English Electric, which is really good, and then another one called The Punishment of Luxury, which I still have to get used to. Didn't quite bowl me over, but, you know. Here's another one I've had on CD forever, The Lilies in the Presence of Nothing, shoegaze from the early 1990s from a guy named Kurt Heasley. This album had it on CD, but just, you know, never did pick up the vinyl, and it was long out of print, so got this reissue, In the Presence of Nothing. Again, think Ride My Bloody Valentine, and you're there. A couple more to show. Bangles, found this one real cheap. This is a collection of their pre-Walk Like an Egyptian Manic Monday era. Collects their first EP that was released on Faulty Products and then later IRS, along with some other, their first single when they were known as The Bangs, and then some demos that they did, and some live material. They cover 7 and 7 Is by Love and Outside Chance by the Turtles. And then one of the reasons I got this was the Rock and Roll Alternative program theme song is on here. When I was 13, 14, 15, just getting into import alternative music back in 83, 84, 85, I listened to a show called The Rock and Roll Alternative in Dallas, and they did the opening theme song for it, and that is included here, so that was a real treat to get. Oh, and it's on red vinyl, so, you know, gotta love that. Couple more here. Slow Dive, Pygmalion, just got this in the mail. This is the Vinyl Me Please Pitchfork reissue, and it's got a slightly different sleeve, kind of a metallic sleeve there, and comes on kind of a marble cream vinyl. This is their 3rd album, came out in 1995. The original is extremely hard to find. There's a reissue on Music on Vinyl label, which you can get as well. And I just kind of been snoozing on it since I've had it digitally all this time. But finally broke down and picked up the vinyl. This just came out. Tangerine Dream, this came out for Record Store Day a few years back, found a markdown on it. One of their first records, Electronic Meditation. Gave it a quick listen, and it's extremely mellow, but I'm looking forward to spending more time with this. I just picked it up. And then lastly, Drinking Electricity. This is a synth duo from the early 1980s. This collects their 1 album and their singles that had been released on the Survival label in the early 1980s. Just good, minimal, early new wave synth. Fantastic stuff. Love them. Boom. There you go. Hope everybody's doing well. That's a little rundown of some of the stuff I picked up this year. We're at 22 minutes, a little over, but hey, you know what? I'm overdue. So hope everybody has a fantastic holiday. I really do. I will be back sooner. I will not wait this long in between videos. I will be back sooner to show you some stuff I pick up in Dallas. Hopefully I'll pick up some stuff there. And also I want to get, I'm in a new room. You may notice I'm in a brand new room. Moved all my records downstairs from upstairs. I was very uncomfortable with the weight of all of these records upstairs. So I moved them down here. I feel a lot more comfortable with them down here. And I'm able to spread out more amongst 2 rooms. So I've got the vinyl in one room, CDs in another. So it's still a work in progress, finishing up some things on it. But once that's done, I want to give you a little tour of that. Okay? Keep the vinyl spinning. Hope everybody's doing well, and I will talk to you soon.